This episode brought to you by Peter Wood's Museum of the Impossible.
What's a Museum of the Impossible? It's gonna be like Harry Potter meets Ripley's Believe It or Not. It'll be a one-of-a-kind, themed, interactive space where people can experience the impossible. But I need your help. To get the project started, I've set up a Patreon over at museumoftheimpossible.com. If you're able to throw a few bucks my way each month, we can build it together. Thanks for your support, and I can't wait to welcome you into the Museum of the Impossible. Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and on today's episode, I'm joined by a journeyman magician who has found his light bulb and helps others, including me, find theirs. Put your hands together for the rockin' eco hero himself, Mr. Steve Trash. There we go. I love it. We talked a little bit last visit about finding your light bulb, and I do think it's a great read for anybody. We were talking also about not just in show business, but the whole idea of finding what it is that can make you different, can make you a specialist, and then sort of leaning into that and promoting it. And you were even saying a lot of it is applicable to non-showbiz folks, right?
Yeah, I think it's completely. I think it's completely applicable to non-show business people. In fact, I actually view myself more as a small business person than I do a show business person. Although I think very much like a show business person. All of the principles that we put into finding your light bulb are principles that any young person that could use while they're branding themselves. And it seems to be a thing on social media that every person has to have their own look, their own brand. And it's built into that finding your light bulb process.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think, yeah, and we all know that specialists get paid more regardless of your field. So if you can, if that can inspire somebody to do that, yeah, I think that's, and are folks able to find that on your website right now? Or you said maybe there's an ebook version coming out?
Yeah, I didn't even know it until my publisher reached out last week, and she said we're going to produce an ebook version of Finding Your Light Bulb. And Finding Your Light Bulb is full of things like the four unique questions, the things that you need to be asking yourself, or the big 7. Do you have the talent and drive to succeed? Are you willing to try to build a well-oiled machine? These are just questions that you should be asking yourself if you're going to be so unique in the marketplace that they literally have to ask for you. And that doesn't apply just to magic or to entertainment. That's any small business, because you really need to be unique and know why you are unique if you're going to make any money.
Yeah, no, I've often joked that my day job is that I work at a small marketing firm that only has one client. And then on the weekends and evenings, I do magic shows for fun. That's the truth of it.
I think that's right. Well, mine is slightly different than that. Franz Harari, who lived in Los Angeles, and he's a well-known illusionist that works mostly in Asia, but he still lived in LA, and we became friends, and he said, no, I do the magic shows for free. I get paid to back the stuff up and travel to the location.
Yes.
And that my life is more like that. Since I'm a national touring act, honestly, it's more just the driving and the packing and all of that junk, because the shows, we actually enjoy doing the shows.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely the logistics. Well, so then, you have, nationally touring, internationally touring. And I remember when you and I first met, that was before the TV shows. And I think we even had a chat at that moment when we were hanging out there, sort of about how that had always sort of been on your bucket list, sort of needling away at the back of your mind. And I love the story about how you made that happen in a really interesting way. So can you sort of talk about where the TV shows came from?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was a pretty okay actor. I was all right. So I went to this festival in college or in high school, and I went to Auburn University, and that's where the festival was. And I won an award for my acting job. And Auburn University offered me a scholarship to come and study acting. And I had already realized that the greatest impact can be made through broadcast and media. At that time, it was really only TV. So I said, no, thank you to Auburn, and went to the University of Alabama because they had a TV program, because I wanted to learn how to have the greatest impact with whatever my message was, and remember, I was a Mark Wilson fan. So Mark Wilson had done it through TV. So man, I dove in. That's where the PBS affiliate was. It was based out of the University of Alabama. And, I learned as much as I possibly can. And I kept hammering away at what would it need to look like to be as good as I want it to be and to still have the Steve Trash message? What would it have to look like? And I probably pitched that same show to complete and total passes, meaning they said no, 18 years.
Wow.
And I 5 years ago, I had come up with a concept that I really liked that I thought would play on public television. So I financed a pilot myself. I shot it with a live audience, and I took it down to Alabama Public Television. They brought their board in, and they all looked around the room, and they said, "We love that.
Nice.
Do you have anything else?" Yeah, no, it's worse. They loved it, but they couldn't take it because there wasn't enough educational content.
Oh.
And they said, "Do you have anything else?"
Right.
And I said, yes, I do, as a matter of fact, because I did. I have this concept of science and magic being sometimes mistaken for each other. Almost universally, people like magic. It's interesting, it's fun, it's bubblegum. So we could cross the streams of magic is creating the illusion that you can defy the laws of nature. You can't. No one can defy the laws of nature. We, as magicians, know where the little holes in perception are. So we take advantage of those to create illusions. Science is the study of how the natural world actually works. There's no illusion in that. Through data, through lots and lots of scientists, we can say gravity is real. That's science. They looked at me and went, "It's great. We want it. How soon can you deliver a season?"
Oh, no.
And I was like, "Oh, holy cow." I don't have a pilot or anything for this other one. But that was one of the things I had learned over 18 years is always have have a plan B. I mean, as a magician, you know this. There should always be a plan B, man, because, you may try to force a card. You may try to do something. The string may break.
Yeah.
Always have an out or a plan B. Well, because I had a plan B, I gave them this pitch, and honest to goodness, I had been hammering this thing for years and years, and one of the board members, their attorney, who is now the CEO, stood up and said, "Guys, I don't know, but Steve did a show for us at the mall probably 18 years ago, and the children adored him. Anything he does, they're going to love." Nice. So the deal was sealed right then. And it was because I showed up, I did a quality job, I kept trying to be better, make my pitch better, ask anyone who's ever spent any time in a dressing room with me. Like big state fairs, we have a lot of downtime. There's 2 hours between each show or something. I'm always at my computer. It's always been that way. I was always either writing an episode or writing a pitch, always creating so I could be ahead of the curve. Because remember, I'm never going to be the smartest guy in the room, but I can outwork almost everybody.
There you go. I love. Well, it's funny. We were talking about Bill Nye last time. One of his quotes is, "Everyone you'll ever meet knows something you don't." And so I love the idea of knowing that you're not the smartest guy in the room and knowing that you need to work to make up for that is such a great ethic and lesson for anyone, really.
Yeah, there's a really wonderful book out there too that flips what you just said on its head, because I'm fully aware, but it flips it by saying work to your strengths. And so that's something that I did. I am dyslexic. I read very slowly. I'm very poor at contracts or reading big long things. So I hire those people that to work for me. I have an amazing calendar czar, Pam, and Pamela, she signs my contracts, she reads my contracts, she sets my calendar for me, and I do best if I'm hearing something, like audio wise. I'm better at understanding. My comprehension is better if I hear something as opposed to just reading it. If I read it and hear it, it's locked in my brain, right? It's locked. But I hire those people to work on those things that I'm not great at. I focus only on the things that I can do and that I'm great at. And here's the list. I create, I perform, I steer the ship, I prepare, I delegate, and I R&R. It's those 6 things. If it doesn't fit those 6 categories, create, perform, steer the ship, prep, delegate, or R&R, I don't do it, right? It doesn't belong in my world, because in my world, those 6 items cover all of my bases, and you can try to remediate all the things that you're poor at, and on some things you're going to have to get there. You need to know how to read, right? I mean, you need to remediate those things, but the things that you will set the world on fire will be those areas where you have some talent, and you need to keep stoking that talent, making it better and better, learning more. Watching those people that you admire. Abner the Eccentric is a professional clown, and I adore the guy. I mean, everything about Abner is, to my way of seeing the world, it's perfection. It's what a clown should be. And I don't know if your listeners know him. He doesn't wear a white face. He's what is considered a European clown. Yeah. He sees the world through clown eyes. I'll give you a quick example. You had asked me about Steve Trash being just sort of birthed, you know. Did you have to go through different iterations? The costume has been through different iterations, right? So I love Abner, and I was like, I wonder if I could dress a little bit like a baggy clown, right? Always having the top hat, because I'm a huge Lewis Carroll fan. So Steve Trash had the big tall top hat at the very beginning. That's the only consistent thing since the very beginning. But I tried one season to go out with these baggy pants, baggy blue jeans, that they were patchy, with what do you call those? Suspenders, right? So totally did not work. My audiences, they're like, why's that man's pants so big? Right? So I abandoned that. I went back to being the rock and eco hero. I leaned into more the rock star guy with the patches and the hat and the glasses and all of that. But, you can't know if you don't try it. So I'm perfectly willing to fall on my face and look like a jerk. So I tried and go, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else.
Yeah. Well, and there's something great. Your look is such a cool juxtaposition from, you don't look like a homeless bum rooting through the trash can, even though your show looks like you just rooted through the trash can, and I love that. Like you certainly look like you know what you're doing based on your attire. And I think that's a really important part of your sort of recipe,
And that may be why it didn't work, Peter. Right. Is that there needed to be a juxtaposition. A funny story about the State Fair of Texas. I worked at there. Great State Fair, by the way. And the first day of work, and I was literally being hired by Miller Lite to do street shows in front of their stage, because they had these big acts that would perform, and then there would be a huge amount of downtime, and they didn't want the crowds to leave. So I'd go out and do street magic for them. Well, the cops came and tried to take me off. They thought I was panhandling. And I'm like, no, I'm hired to be here. Right. Because one of the ethics, since I was a theater kid, one of my mental rules for being Steve Trash is everything that I wore, everything that I performed with, had to be a found object. I couldn't buy any costuming. I could not use any tricks that were not found from the trash. And I discovered that I needed to tweak that, because I did not need to be written off as a homeless guy, right, even though the message was try to reduce, reuse, and recycle as much as possible. And so that did morph over time, just because I was open to the feedback from the audiences and from the cops trying to throw me off the fairgrounds.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I also like, I did a couple of gigs recently for Under Armour here in Baltimore. And I was, one in particular, they gave me and my buddy Brian, who did the gig, they were like, hey, we'll outfit you head to toe if you want. And it was just funny. I was thinking about you because I know you like the Under Armour undershirt underneath your frock coat. You're out there repping Under Armour all the time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I love that brand, and I mean they're not really a sponsor or anything. I just simply like it because I work very hard on stage, and I'm wearing a large jacket, so I'm pretty much drenched with sweat when I finish a show. But I don't want you to know that.
Right.
I don't want the audience to know that there's this disgusting wet man up there on the stage.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids, my wife asks me, how did today's show go? And I'll say, well, it was a 5-leg hug. Oh, no. I think maybe it was a 7-leg hug, and
That's great.
Some kids they'll squeeze me. The leg hug, of course, is little children grabbing you and giving you a hug.
Sure.
And sometimes they go, wow, you're really wet. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry about that, man. Sorry. It's what happens to the body. It's a natural cooling system.
Right. Yeah, right. That's definitely the what you're always fighting in the outdoor shows. You want to have a particular look, but you also want to try to keep your you as comfortable as possible. But even again, beyond the comfort, there's if people think that you're up there miserable and sweating, it can have a negative effect on how they perceive your show. And that's a challenge sometimes.
100%. It's a huge challenge. Have you ever cut yourself on stage? Have you ever been bleeding? People don't like blood.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What did you do?
Last week, it was my best trick last week. I did a show. I nicked my finger as I was shoving my thumb into an envelope. And I hope that I applied the Band-Aid just while talking, setting up the next thing I was about to do. Hopefully the best trick of the show was that I magically had a Band-Aid on at the end and nobody realized it. But it's a challenge.
Well, people have yes, it is. And you need, that old saw, the show must go on. People, you got to suck it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have a fever, and you don't feel well, you still have to suck it up. You got to get on that stage and do your thing. If you cut yourself during performance, first of all, you need to be aware from an audience perspective. Audiences don't like blood, unless the whole shtick is macabre, right?
Sure.
But if it's not, you need to very, very quietly get that Band-Aid on, or say to the audience, hey guys, I just sort of cut my finger. Give me a second. Let me cover this up with some gaff tape or something, because they just don't like it. They kind of hold you up to this. I used to do gags. You have to learn who you are on that stage. And, we talked about me loving Abner so much. Well, really bad things happen to Abner on the stage. I mean, they're funny, but they're bad. And one thing I discovered about routining for Steve Trash, I always have to win at the end of the routine, because every magic trick is a story, right? And stories are how humans understand stuff. We make a story of everything. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. There is a handkerchief, it's now gone, now it's back again, right? That's a story. Mm-hmm. And what I discovered was my audiences don't like it when I don't end up on top. I can't be defeated by a funny prop. I've got Ted the Tennis Ball. I've had Ted the Tennis Ball who floats in the air. For your magicians, it's called a zombie ball. But this is Ted. He was thrown away. Sometime I found him around 1984, 1985. I've used this same tennis ball, and he floats beneath an umbrella cloth, right? He floats around. He whacks me in the face. He whacks me in the face. And then finally, I make him disappear. The audience wants me to not end the routine with Ted having beat me.
Sure.
Right? Having won that little contest. And because I'm really open to the way audiences perceive things, I just write my routines that way. And believe me, I've tried, because I find it when the clown fails at the end of a routine is hysterical to me. But it doesn't work for Steve Trash for whatever reason.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, and it's an interesting question about how the audience is relating to you. It's almost the whole laughing at or laughing with kind of a thing, where I think they're looking at you in a different way than an average clown.
Yeah. And so, and just to be open to that, they will tell you all sorts of stuff that you need to know. My book, one of the things I did in my book is I did not write the book over the pandemic. I wrote the book starting in 1987. Every time I had an idea of something that I had learned, I thought about my career, I would write it down, right? Because I wanted to review it. I was like, well, because I do postmortems. I do postmortems on everything I do, on a TV show. I do a postmortem on appearing for a group, an audience, maybe in a market I didn't think I'd do well in, but I did well, or the opposite. I tanked. I was the worst performer they had ever seen. They hold the check. They don't even pay me, right? Yeah. So I do postmortems on all that. So if you collect your notes over the course of a 40-year career, that's what I put into Finding Your Light Bulb. It's just the stuff that I thought was principles that anybody could use. Because if it only applies to me, that's worthless. Why would you bother putting that in there? But if it's a principle that applies to a small business, and in our case, it's entertainment, then that could have some value to other people. So I began writing those notes down and putting it together, and we published the book. My publisher is Renaissance Valley Publishing, and they published back in 2020, but she's just released an ebook version, which I really like a lot. To be honest, I'm actually working on an audio version because I prefer to listen to books. Sure. The best. That's the best. I like that. I get the best out of it. So I'm probably going to release that in the next few months as well.
Oh, that would be great. And are you going to be recording it?
Yeah, I'll be recording. I'll probably release one. And I hate to say this, but I'm probably going to release one using AI, just having an AI voice do it for me. Okay. I always wanted to hear myself in a British accent, and I've got a British accent lady that's really amazing. She's really good. When she says "trash," it's really lovely.
Yeah. I've discovered that as well. If I have a regular VO person doing an intro for me, there's something about Peter Wood, like in an English a British accent, like Peter. It just sounds so much better. So yeah, I hear you.
It sounds great. Yeah. And so we'll do that. And the whole goal of my career, and the whole goal, I think, of anyone who's trying to build a business is that you really, especially if you're in show business, that you're not one of a million. You're shooting to be one in a million. And everything you chip away at is to make you that one in a million. Wow, that lady is special. Wow, that dude is special. Everyone thinks that they are special. Everyone. And in a cosmic sense, they are special and unique. But I'm talking about being special and unique in the marketplace, where people can recognize how special and unique you are. I know the things that I'm good at, and so I really work hard at those. And I know the things that I'm poor at. I hire really good people to do them for me, right? And so we don't fall short when the experience needs to be excellent. My goal is to always, regardless of conditions, we were talking about sweating a little while ago and Under Armour, just the goal is to be excellent every time out. And if you sweat the details, it's a lot more stressful, but you do get closer to being one in a million rather than just being one of a million.
Yeah. And being, I think it's so smart, delegating allows you to sweat those details, and you can focus on your strengths as opposed to, I love the idea of steering the ship, but again, you're not crewing the entire ship. That's a great analogy.
No. That steering the ship for me is I love it because I can see myself going, because I see horizons very well. I've said to friends that are in the military, I said, if we're in a foxhole, you want me beside you because I panic over little details, but by golly, I'm the guy that will be calling the shots, and you need to get behind me because I can see the horizon. Right. I can see what we need to be doing, and let's all go do it together. I'm terrible at the little details, but I'm pretty good at that long distance vision. And, as the example of the TV show, at staying with that vision. There's a little bit of madness that goes with people that are in show business because they think they have something to say. I mean, that's a little crazy. because you want to stand up and have everybody look at you. You want to have a TV camera on you. You want to have that spotlight just on you. You want to have that social media. You want to be the TikTok star. That's a little nuts, that you think you're that special.
Well, and actually, I did have one other question I wanted to chat about, because I think you are unique in among performers that I know of in terms of this. You've got a very different social media, I want to say like algorithm or exercise or practice. Tell me how you view social media and how social media is a part or not a part of your life.
Okay. Can you elaborate on why I'm really different first? Because I think I understand your question, but I'm not sure.
Sure. You spend less time on social media than most performers that I know, but you're still there. Like you are not. I know performers who are a complete Luddite and decide social media is not for me. I'm not even going to be there. Or they are there, but they're spending a lot of time. And I've seen you, not only put out good content, but also sort of remind or warn people that you spend a very limited amount of time on those platforms on a daily basis.
Yeah. Okay, I understand your question, and all of what you said is 100% true. For me, social media can drive fans, but they won't book gigs. And so my notion to steer the ship is put your energy. I'm a fan of the musician Jason Isbell. He's in fact a friend, and he's well known. If you don't know Jason Isbell, look him up under Americana, and he's got a really wide social media network. And he says, people ask him, well, why don't you say something on this important political topic? And he said, look, if I think I can make a difference, then I say something. If I don't think I can make a difference, I don't say anything. Yeah. And I feel the same way about social media. Social media will build you fans and followers, but it won't book one gig. And so all of my content is for fans. It's for people that like my message, like my mission. I hate to say this out loud, but I spend only 7 minutes a day on social media. Now, I will write if I think I need to articulately say something, like, for instance, my TV show, Steve Trash Science, is all over the U.S. My partner is Alabama Public Television, but it's all over the U.S. We're on the PBS site, so you go to the PBS site, Steve Trash Science, you can watch all of our episodes. And so I put content out there. I will take offline time and put in, let's see, what's coming up this weekend, episode on fossils and fractions, which, some of your fans might even know Michael Goudeau. Michael wrote both of those episodes. He's a very good comedy writer for Penn and Teller. He opened for Lance Burton. Well, he wrote both of those episodes for me. And so I spend the time offline, but I only go online. And I have a timer. It's only 7 minutes. And I just respond to people that have asked me a question, or they, want to interact in some way with me, because it's a waste of my time. That there is a huge clock in my sky. And that clock is telling me that time to be great and amazing is ticking down. Are you working on the big rock instead of the little rock? And for me, social media it's a smaller rock. And honestly, I don't orient anything I do towards other performers. If we are connected on social media, you're either a fan or a friend of mine. It has almost nothing to do with me connecting with other performers, because I don't really run in that world. Nobody books my show is from our world. That doesn't really happen.
Sure. No, I think it's great. I mean, I think your creative output and sanity have a lot to do with having that 7 minute timer. But again, realizing that it is a tool, and it's a tool that you're using in this is sort of the scope that you found it's successful for you. That launches me, Peter. Pardon the interruption. That it's sometimes the signal's a little slow, but that makes me think. I have thought about TikTok for the longest time. First of all, I'm old school. I don't like anything that's not horizontal, right? I mean, right. I'm old school. They drilled this 16:9 perspective. You get taught that in broadcast, and if you're doing something vertically, you must be doing something wrong, And so it took me a long time to get there.
But you know what? That is where my real fans, the children that love me, the children that need my message, the children, frankly, that need the encouragement that Steve Trash can offer them, that's on TikTok, because that is where they are. So I've made a new commitment to create enough content. I've started rolling it out, but it'll really roll out next month, not so much right now. But I've been sort of figuring out what succeeds the most and how can I not compromise what I want to say and what I want to do using that little narrow band of the way you have to create things. And honestly, that was one of the things about TikTok is it all looks like garbage to me. You know, it's jumbled. It's the content is the music is not great. Blah, blah, blah. Forget about it. None of that matters to a young audience anymore. None of it. So create content that you can connect with them. And that's what I'll be doing on TikTok. And I probably will spend more time than 7 minutes there because I instantly, before I finish the show at my last show, kids were like, I just followed you on TikTok. I'm like, I'm not even finished with the show. You know, and so that is where my audience is. And, you know, your listeners, find out where your people are. You know, see where your tribe is. Because we've all done shows that we were terrible. Well, you know what? You were probably terrible because either one, you weren't prepared, or two, they're not your people. You know, just mark that down. Dude, they're not your people. You know, just move on. Just go to a different group. And I know exactly who my people are. And I want to, with that big clock ticking down, with that limited amount of time left, I was watching a Houdini biography once, and this guy who was a historian said, that guy, Eric Weiss, Houdini, he really, really closed the gap between what he was and what he could have been. And hearing that quote, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And that's what I've always tried to do, is close the gap between what I could have been and what I am. And that just, it gets me up early and keeps me up late. That really drives me.
Yeah. No, it is evident in all the stuff that I've seen of you. And that's a lovely segue for our listener here who's hanging out with us today. If you are on any of those platforms, so on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, it's Steve Trash. And then on Twitter, it is Steve Trash Rocks. But the main hub for everything, if you head on over to stevetrash.com, then that's where you can find even more information about the PBS show. If you are somebody who is in a position where you're, booking, fairs or festivals or school events, that is the way, the path to get in touch with, not Steve, obviously, but Pamela. And she'll get you in touch with Steve. But yeah, all sorts of awesome stuff going on in the Steve Trash world. Head over to stevetrash.com. Once again, Steve, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It is always a pleasure. And I enjoyed the chat, and I'm sure our friend listening did as well.
You're a good man, Peter. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Podcast of the Impossible. But for behind the scenes access to my Museum of the Impossible project, as well as info about public shows, private events, social media, and more, you can head on over to peterwood.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.